Hello there, C.Note here, and welcome back to Dopamine and Other Happy Chemicals. My name is Christian Rivera, and I am the host and creator of this channel. You may have noticed if you've browsed this channel that I specialize in INTPs in the Myers-Briggs system, helping in support of relationships, growth, productivity, and sort of understanding our chemical makeup and mental health and all of that stuff through the lens of my experience and people that I've met and all of that fun stuff. I'm recovering from having done a 30-minute video just prior to this about this same topic, but am frustrated that somehow in the processing it got lost. So to add on top of what I'm going to talk about in this video, which is assembling an extroverted feeling, or what's called shorthand FE, recovery kit for INTPs, I am experiencing a lot of FE frustrations right now, and I guess I can just let it out through the course of talking on this episode. So I recently have been experiencing burnout because I'm also an INTP in the Myers-Briggs system, an INTP meaning introverted, intuitive thinking and perceiving type. And if you unlock that 4-letter code, there are what are called cognitive functions that get into more nuanced detail about how the INTP mind is wired and works. I usually reference my friends at Personality Hacker. They're the ones who taught me a lot of what I know about personality type. And they use what is called the CAR model, which explains the 4 cognitive functions in 4 different positions of your mind. There's like a dominant usage of the function, a secondary usage, a third usage, which is like a 10-year-old, and then an inferior usage, which is like the 3-year-old. So you've got the dominant in the driver's seat, you've got the secondary in the passenger seat, you've got the 10-year-old behind the passenger, and then you've got the 3-year-old behind the driver. So it's kind of like a family unit in a sense. You know, INTPs, we have introverted thinking, extroverted intuition as the secondary, introverted sensing as the tertiary, and extroverted feeling as the inferior. I'm not going to go into all of those specifics because I have videos on this channel that explain all of that, and namely a series called Are You Really an INTP that goes into all of the specific detail and nuances as to what's involved in those 4 functions. I have other videos and also premium programs on my website at happychemicals.org that explain sort of the energy usages and stuff like this of these functions. So I wanted to talk about creating assembling an FE recovery kit for yourself as an INTP. What does that mean? So extroverted feeling, being that 3-year-old inferior function, is about harmony and vibe and fitting in and love and affection and support and culture. And extroverted feeling, those who use it in a dominant position are sort of in tune with popular culture. They're in tune with creating a vibe in a space. They typically can be very good hosts, can be really great at being a part of a community or support system. And extroverted feeling, being in the inferior or 3-year-old position, means that a 3-year-old is not really great at much of anything, especially extroverted feeling for the 3-year-old function. So we have some struggle with that as an INTP, and I talk about that plenty on this channel. Why would you want a recovery kit? Is because there may be instances where you're overusing. I have also very much overused our extroverted feeling, and the usage of the energy associated with that function gets completely depleted, right? And so extroverted feeling is vital. It's like the healer in your team of sorts. It's something that is, if the 3-year-old is happy in a family unit, then everyone's happy, right? But if the 3-year-old is unhappy, it gathers everyone's attention. Somebody's got to deal with it. So if you've got the 3-year-old screaming in the back seat for ice cream and they are not getting that attention, you can maybe ignore them at first, and you're like, no, we got to keep going. We got to go where we're going. We got to go where we're going. And introverted thinking, the driver is like, nope, we're just going to ignore these needs and we're going to keep going forward, right? And I think it's important to notice that after a while, the 3-year-old is just going to keep on screaming. They might not be able to keep themselves busy anymore. And you're going to have to stop the car and give them attention, or take them to get the ice cream that they're screaming for, right? And so how that translates in our mind is that if we are giving attention to something outside of ourselves, we are a part of a culture whether we realize it or not. You know, you're part of a video game culture. Maybe you're part of the culture of this YouTube channel and you know how to operate in the comments or how not to operate in the comments, or you have different areas where you're part of a vibe and you know what is appropriate or not appropriate. And also different situations where you may be taking care of things. You may be doing workplace things and you have to fit into a culture in the best way that you can, or that you're taking care of kids and you have a partner or you have a family system and you're needing to find a way to match and even counter against that system. So countering against that system is sometimes, you have to understand what the system is in order to counter against it, right? So that is still using extroverted feeling to know what is happening in order for you to rebel against it. Does that make sense? So there is that polarity, that introverted thinking, extroverted feeling exists at all times, and it's being used, and it's functioning, it's operating in you unconsciously. And so when you get into what's called grip stress, and I have videos about grip stress, FE grip stress is like when that battery of extroverted feeling is depleted, right? So you've got introverted thinking, extroverted intuition, introverted sensing. You've got these other 4 functions. And I think of them as having like their own battery recharges in a sense. They have their own ways of recharging. Introverted thinking recharges by doing research, by thinking about explanations, by thinking about word usage, by creating distinctions, and sort of looking at the world in a self-filtering, analytic kind of way. There's like maybe a meshwork of ideas that all interconnect with each other, and you're trying to understand how they connect or disconnect, right? So introverted thinking is kind of in an automatic mode. It's something that, because it's your dominant function, it is operating in a way that is unconsciously competent. It doesn't know how good it is. You don't know how good you are at using introverted thinking, or how frequent you're using introverted thinking. And there's like a constant replenishment. I think of it as like in modern electric cars, there's what's called regenerative braking. It's like when you're braking in the car, you're recharging the battery because there's energy being used, like energy being created through braking, through putting the brake pads on the tires, and there's heat being released. Regenerative braking is taking that heat and repurposing it into a battery recharge. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what introverted thinking is kind of like. You're using introverted thinking, but you're getting a hit from it at the same time, sometimes. I have a video about INTP validation that I think is part of getting not only an FE recharge, but a TI recharge of validating your thought process. Somebody else validating your thought process, which is probably more FE recharge as well. So I think of each of these as like a give and take. You give or you utilize or put into action these varying functions, and then you need recharges for each of these functions. And these varying functions have different states or ways of recharging. And with extroverted feeling, it's hard to know what recharges extroverted feeling. So if you're completely depleted, that's what grip stress gets you into, is like this panic of everybody in the car is turning their attention towards the 3-year-old screaming child and like, what do you need? We don't understand. Like a baby's speaking gibberish and can't speak English. You don't understand, or, whatever language, that you don't understand what they want. And like, especially introverted thinking is like, what do you want? I don't understand what these needs are. And not understanding that you've been unconsciously depleting or releasing pressure and not getting the extroverted feeling needs that you so deeply desire, because we all need to fit in somewhere, even as INTPs who are very much, operating from an introverted thinking perspective. This extroverted feeling is not like a native genius zone for us. Introverted thinking and extroverted intuition, those front seat aspects of ourselves, are more of the dominant strength. It's It's what we do a little bit more naturally. Whereas extroverted feeling is like an unconscious incompetence. Like we kind of know we're bad at it, but we mostly don't know how, to the degree that we're not great at this extroverted feeling or great at the awareness of our extroverted feeling. We may actually be pretty good at it. I've developed over time this ability to speak on camera and connect with people and use my extroverted feeling. But I've also learned how to recover it, because when I do this and I talk for a long time, I am totally burnt out. And I use my methods that I talk about in the FE recovery kit that I'm presenting to you here, to replenish that energy. Because if I'm giving, then I have to recharge. If you're using your phone all day, you have to plug it in, right? You have to recharge that battery. And the mind's different wirings kind of work that way. So if one is depleted in an attempt to try to get energy, it's going to pull from other sources. So if your extroverted feeling is depleted, then it's going to start pulling from introverted thinking, extroverted intuition, these other parts of your mind and physical space and heart space, and pulling from wherever energy it can. It's like a stomach kind of starting to eat itself. It's like, well, if you're not going to give me food from outside, I'm going to find my ways to get the energy that I need, right? And so that results in like outbursts. You've got these typical expressions of extroverted feeling, like getting very kind of whiny a little bit, maybe trying to start fights on the internet to try to get attention. We've got all sorts of ways that unconsciously this extroverted feeling is like searching for love and belonging, right? So I went through this in the past few days. Like we were dealing with a little bit of, we had the kids over, and I've been trying to find this balance for myself with the kids over. We've got my partner, Molly, she's an ENFP. We've got an ENFP 6-year-old and an ESTJ 9-year-old. And also Enneagram 8 and Enneagram 7. There's a lot of energy, right? And so for me, I'm the one where I'm feeling this pressure in our space to create a vibe, to create a feeling, to create equilibrium for like the kids to be happy, to be able to do what they're doing. Like I care about what they're doing and what they want. And so I'm making myself of service to them. And I'm trying, there's an ambition of extroverted feeling to be good at it. And as I am spending more time as a dad, as someone who is, trying to build more of a community, to speak more, to like flex those extroverted feelings muscles, I don't really know my limits sometimes. And I often don't realize until it's too late. I do have some tools to recover, but in the moment, it's really hard to notice. And it's especially hard because if you're in situations where you're getting banter, you're getting feedback from somebody, you may not realize how you're giving and receiving at the same time. But if I'm in a situation where I'm basically with all FI and TE, introverted feeling and extroverted thinking types, then they're not interested in that reciprocity. They're kind of doing their own thing. Whereas I'm trying to anticipate their needs, where I'm trying to get a sense of like, okay, they're probably feeling hungry, or maybe they're being cranky and this means this or this means that. And I'm trying to understand that. They're not really thinking about my needs in that way. They may do it like by accident. They like, if they're saying like, oh, it's like lunchtime and I'm going to make grilled cheese. And because I'm making grilled cheese, I'm going to make grilled cheese for everybody. That's more of an extroverted thinking utility of, well, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to replicate the process. Whereas with extroverted feeling, I'm like, okay, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And so sometimes if I'm surrendering myself to extroverted feeling too much, I might end up making like 2 or 3 meals to make sure everybody gets their individual needs met, because I'm trying to honor their introverted feeling at the same time. So introverted feeling doesn't really care about like vibing over the same thing. Like Molly and I, part of it is, there is relational challenges with extroverted feeling, especially if you're with an introverted feeling type. Like they're going to be more concerned about their emotional experience. So if you've got like a collective or a collection of extroverted feeling people, you've got a couple friends who are at a lunch table and like they're at a diner or something, and we're all sharing stories, and one person's like, I have this problem and I'm dealing with this thing. And then everybody's like throwing in their solutions and they're trying to help you out. And then the next person takes a turn. Then the next person takes a turn. So you give and then you take support. And there's a reciprocity in there. But if there's an introverted feeling in the person in the group and they're triggered, like something reminds them of something, or something triggers an emotion, or they're just feeling what they're feeling and they want to express it, they're not really going to wait for their turn. They don't really know the dynamics of that, or they don't care about the dynamics of that. They're like, what I want is what I want, so I'm going to go do what I want. And that's not that they're being rude. It's just that's the way that they're wired. That actually is helpful so that we don't necessarily get into this overly communal way of feeling or surrendering to a specific defined feeling, but that individual feelings are also honored as well. So extroverted feeling, in a sense, is creating a vibe and absorbing the emotional energy of a space as it is unfolding, not necessarily how it's being created. So an example of that is Molly and I, when sometimes I'm in an FE mode, and when I'm trying to get some of that FE energy, I can't really make decisions anymore. I can't make judgments. I'm like totally just burnt out. I just can't even, just don't even want to anymore. And all of the energy is going towards the extroverted feeling and saying like, no, we need to stop everything else and we need to give extroverted feeling some attention. So her and I will watched Love is Blind recently, for example. And the show has its problems. There's plenty of things to be cynical about, and it's got a ton of problems. That's like part of why we watch it. But when I'm in an extroverted feeling mode, I'm like trying to absorb the situation. I'm trying to literally hear what someone is saying about what they're expressing. Not my interpretation of what they're saying, not any cynicism or judgment about it, just taking in literally what they're saying. And so the challenge is that when Molly's using her introverted feeling, she's like, I don't know that she's actually feeling that, right? And that can feel like it's popping my balloon, right? Of sorts. What I'm trying to do, like, it's extra information that is not the vibe. And that can get a little bit stressful when I might even like get upset at her and say like, okay, I just want to take it in for a second. and that can be a challenge. But also what she's feeling is valid, and I don't want to discourage that. But when I'm in a grip stress state, I'm really wanting to soak it in. So that's with music or a movie or like a situation where someone is creating a specific energy, like encouraging people to either have an upbeat kind of energy, or so examples of that might be a wedding or a funeral. There's typically like a vibe. There's typically an energy that this calls for, right? An appropriateness, a cultural appropriateness, or a common feeling that everyone is or kind of is dancing around feeling, right? So if there's a funeral and like the introverted feeling person is like, I'm actually pretty happy today, I'm in a good mood, like that's okay, that's their prerogative. But like overall, the tone is that, we're mourning and there's maybe more of a somber feel. Or if, depending on what the situation is, if the idea is to celebrate this person's life, then that's going to be the energy, right? Sort of a collective definition of what the energy is going to be. So in a sense, grip stress for an INTP is needing this kind of replenishment to get into a situation where there is a defined energy of sorts, where there is a culture to soak in, there is a vibe to soak in, there's something to observe and be a part of and participate in. So part of what I did when I was in this grip stress is I started, so let me tell you the story that leads all to this, first of all. So I worked with the kids all the weekend, and Monday morning we had already taken the kids back and to their other house, and we handed them back to the government. No, we took them back to their other house, and Monday I had just like groceries I had to do. I had just like more things to do, and so I did all of that, and I used some of that remaining energy that I had. But when I came home, Molly's also in her introverted sensing grip state. Like she's trying to use her NE, her dominant function, but she keeps getting pulled, like she's resisting it, right? And that's what we do as INTPs also. We're resisting that extroverted feeling. We're resisting, communicating with others. Maybe we need to go somewhere. Maybe we need to vibe with someone. Maybe we need to call our mom, right? Maybe we need to have cuddle time with our partner, or a long hug and a cry, or listen to good music. And we're denying ourselves that. We keep thinking, oh, I should just do more thinker stuff. So in my mind, part of it was like getting back into my routine of like, okay, I have groceries to do. I need to do all of the math around that. I need to do the budget. I need to blah, 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 blah. So I went and I did the groceries and I came home. Molly's pretty chill and she's like burnt out. And she's asking things of me. And she says like, hey, can you put this in the oven? Can you do that? And I started to put the groceries away. And then I just dropped everything. And I was like, no, I can't do it anymore. The Getting Needs Met Hotel is closed. I just can't do it anymore. I'm done. I will put this in the oven and I will set the timer, but you got to get it. I'm going to put in headphones. I'm going to put the rest of the groceries away later. Nope. I just reached literally zero. My phone died. My FE phone died. So I put on headphones and I put on one of my playlists, which I have for these occasions, which is more emotional expression, like popular music kind of playlists. And I feel the energetic hit that comes from that. And while I was doing that, I actually had this idea for creating this FE recovery kit. Now I have kind of my version of it, and I'm going to share my version with you in the description below as part of something that you can order and use for yourself to start to develop your own playlist. And also there will be a video that's support for you in your growth. During that, I also wrote a script because I knew I was going to go banter and I want to make sure I cover everything. So I kind of covered this already. What is grip stress and why can an INTP get into grip stress? This grip happens because we either have not had enough recovery over a length of time, or have had a short burst where we had to use a lot of emotional energy all at once, such as get a partner and or kids' needs met. Sometimes using a lot of our introverted thinking, like we're trying to solve problems, we're trying to contribute to the world, we're trying to build something, create something, and piecing stuff together, and then we want to share those things. And if we're not getting feedback for what we're sharing, that can also trigger some of the grip stress of like, nobody cares what I'm thinking about or what I'm working on, or about me and what I care about, what I want, or what I need. So it can be especially draining if you're not getting feedback, feeling appreciated, or are emotionally vibing or not emotionally vibing with people in the situation. My friend Ala comes over and we hang out and we talk about whatever's happening with her work. She has maybe relational stuff, and we just kind of talk about whatever comes up. And that's kind of it, like bouncing emotional energy back and forth. She shares some stuff with her, I share some stuff with me, and there's a vibe. And that's replenishing, because you figure things out that way too. That's actually very nourishing for the introverted thinking brain of like, what should I be thinking about? What should I be caring about? Is kind of what comes out through that extroverted feeling vibing. So I mentioned before, like the idea of should I just do thinker stuff? And it's important to note that you can't logic your way into FE recovery, other than having the knowledge and awareness to recognize that you're in this feeling and that there's a way to get the energy that you need. So it's the equivalent of, like I said, a baby screaming so loud in the back seat that it's no longer ignorable. And so the only solution is to get the baby what it needs. You can't give the baby what the driver needs. You need to get the baby what the baby needs, right? And so what is baby FE, which is what I call it, demanding? Attention, love, affection, support, affirmations, connection, feedback, and to fit in and to be seen and heard. I think baby FE is always demanding this, but gets ignored by introverted thinking's needs. So, and rightfully so. I mean, a baby shouldn't be in charge, shouldn't be jumping and leaping and grabbing the wheel, and shouldn't be driving the car. But, nobody puts baby in a corner, at least not for too long. So what can you as an INTP start to do to recover? First is to basically immerse yourself into an emotional vibe, culture, or experience. For example, a coffee shop has a vibe or a culture to it. Talk to the barista and be in the experience of the space. Even if it's, kind of like a surface level interaction, it's their job to make you feel like you belong. So don't get into the introverted thinking cynicism of like, oh, it's just their job. They don't actually care about me or care about what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. Like all the reasons. You don't need any of that. Just look at the smile on the person's face, vibe with them, reflect what they're saying, get into rapport with them, and not necessarily repeat what they're saying, but repeat their gestures, like mirror them a little bit. Maybe use some of their hand signals or just smile when they smile, kind of bounce that back and forth. But also if they suck and they're not smiling and they're not having a good day, like you can also bond with them in that sense, but you can also go somewhere else. Go to a couple different coffee shops or just, go to one for the next few days and keep showing your face, and they'll start to get to know you and you'll start to feel like you belong. My favorite experience every year when I lived in San Diego was Comic-Con. I went every year and it was such a great vibe, so many friendly people, great cosplay, and just a ton of fun. I went alone, but used to share it via a vlog and photos for feedback, but FE is best done in the moment. So posting something on social media or interacting online is not extroverted feeling necessarily. You really need that feedback. You need to see someone's face, to get into someone's energy, to know their vibe. Especially if you're going to bring some of that extroverted intuition in, you're going to kind of get a read on the patterns of different behaviors from people. And so text and Reddit threads and things like that, it's not quite the same because you're trying to interpret all of the vocal tonalities and possibilities of what someone might be expressing, but it's not literally what they're expressing. It's one thing if I say a sentence online, it's another thing if I say it to you on video, right? And you can get a sense of my energy. And that's something where I know that it's important for me to get myself on video because that's why this channel has been doing well when it does, because you see my face, you hear my tone, you hear my intention, you can get a sense of like what my vibe is. And in a way, you're getting an extroverted feeling hit by experiencing and seeing me on camera. It's like talking to a friend in person, right? And the only difference is that you're not speaking back in real time. But if we were genuinely extroverted feeling, we'd be speaking back and forth in real time, and I'd be getting like feedback, like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, right. Got it. Okay. Yeah, keep going. Tell me more about that. Like that kind of thing. So, there are times when, like I said, FE is best done with friends. So like you can arrange a date, meetups. I used to go to meetup.com and I found like an improv group. That was really great to get that FE experience. Play games with people, board game nights. I used to do pub trivia, was really great. I loved that sort of thing. Just don't overthink it. Keep it simple, somewhere where you can go and meet up with somebody. You don't have to do too much prep work, right? And maybe dress up, wear something expressive and nice. But there are times when you got virtually nothing left in the FE tank and everything is crashing super hard. That's where the FE grip stress emergency recovery kit comes in. So music is my favorite and most accessible recovery tool. And so the kit has a playlist for you, has two of them actually, as a prompt to start building your own. So you don't necessarily literally have to use this playlist, but start from there. And, I'm going to include an explainer for why I've picked the music that I've picked, when to use the music, for how long, and how to know when you've recovered and and if it's working. I'm also including an affirmation video you can watch when you need a reminder for how rad you are and validation for being an INTP and like how it's difficult to do all this FE stuff and everything that you're doing, and thinking about is valid and how sometimes you might not get that from somewhere else. So I've created a video on this channel about what other types think about INTPs, and that's a great way to get some affirmation as well, which can be helpful. So I talk about, things you can do if you have a partner or if you have kids, And if you're solo, if you're in a new place and you don't have many people to go do things with, how can you start to meet new people? So in the kit, I've included other ideas for things to do solo if you don't have friends around, like I said, and tips on keeping the tank topped up on a daily basis. So because if that tank is not topped up, like I said, it's going to start pulling from other sources, and you're not going to do your best thinking. You're not going to do your best exploring. You're not going to do, all of the proper introverted sensing work that you need to do. And it's going to be something that feels like a burden instead of something that's actually vital to your growth, vital to being a human being, which is to be social. Humans don't last very long in isolation. And so there are so many stories of INTPs who have basically passived themselves to death and isolated themselves and not connected with human beings. And there are ways to do that. There's a reason I wear this hat, because people see this and they're like, oh, Mega Man, I have a sense of who this guy is. Like, I would hang out with that guy. He's got a Mega Man hat. That's rad, and that tells a story. That's sort of a culture signal, as it were. And I know with online and stuff, there's all sorts of like negativity towards the ideas of signaling, but everybody's signaling. Everybody's showing what you're all about. Even the FI people are showing through their individual expression that they are different from the group. There's still a relationship to the group. And that's what we do with introverted thinking. Like I said, is like we're creating this, we have to know what the vibe is in order to either stand with it or against it or alongside it or to help it grow or to be critical of it. We have to be able to immerse ourselves in it. And that's where the extroverted feeling replenishment comes in. And give your thinking brain a break and get some of that emotional nourishment that is vital to being a human being. So go ahead and pick that up in the description. The INTP FE recovery emergency kit. It's sort of like a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. If you're struggling with keeping up on a daily basis, or it suddenly hits you and you're just like, oh, I'm panicking and I don't know, like you're trying to get something from somewhere. This is something where you can take control and get some of what you need out of it, just using music and some of the other things that I recommend in the recovery kit as well. So go ahead, pick that up in the description, and, break the glass like you're Stone Cold Steve Austin and, take the reins for yourself. The hard part, I should also mention, with extroverted feeling, and some of the reason why these videos go on for too long, is that when you're in an extroverted feeling state, it can be tough to leave it. Because right now, I'm giving a lot of extroverted feeling. I'm putting a lot of energy out there. And it's hard to leave this because I'm waiting for feedback, right? I'm waiting for some sort of, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or like, whoa, wow, that clicks. Like, I can't believe this. Or like, that's amazing. Like, I'm waiting for something, right? So there's nothing right now. That's just the camera, unless I say it to myself, like, yo man, you're doing a great job. I'm like, thanks, me. I appreciate that. And it's a little bit of a faux thing. But anyway, all that being said, this kit I think is something that's valuable that you can go pick up for yourself and keep with you and access as you need it. And I didn't mention it, but we have what's called the INTP Energetic Empowerment Guide. So I talked about like those battery reserves and managing energy and stuff like that. That program is all about INTP energy management, also using the opposite attitudes, meaning the shadow functions. If you're using introverted thinking, how do you bring extroverted thinking in to support that and get a more well-rounded experience? What kind of energy comes out of TI and SI? What energy comes out of NE and FE? What does that look like? And then how do we mode switch as we need to mode switch? That's what that program's all about. So this video is all about picking up the emergency kit, but if you don't need the emergency kit and you want to go deeper into some of the energetic stuff, happychemicals.org, we have a program called the INTP Energetic Empowerment Guide for INTPs. Go check that out. And the last thing, the best way that you can give me the greatest thumbs up is obviously doing the thumbs up and the subscribe thing, but I want you to share it. Wherever it is that your tribe is, if you've got other INTPs, especially that you follow on like Facebook groups or Reddit threads or something like that, I'm only one person doing this, and it helps to get the word out there to, I mean, I have to make this thing sustainable, right? I need to make money to keep this going. And I want to be able to come up with more ideas like this to keep supporting and nurturing INTP growth, because I think INTPs at their best really contribute strongly to society. And the way a lot of things culturally are right now, it can use a lot of effective thinking. And I think if INTPs are not nurturing that extroverted feeling within themselves, then we can't bring our best thinking to the world. And I want to encourage you to bring your best thinking to the world. So I have been Christian Rivera, aka C.Note. Thank you for listening and watching Happy Chemicals, Dopamine and other happy chemicals. Pick up the kit below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Where's the thing? Okay, bye.